Thousands of years ago, someone was blowing pigment over a hand pressed against a rock, a clear sign of artistic endeavor. No practical purpose, just a very human desire to leave your mark and tell your story. And this time, the story unfolds in Indonesia. In the past decade, some amazing prehistoric discoveries were made in Indonesia, namely Pleistocene-aged rock art in Sulawesi, the largest island in Wallacea. That would be the oceanic island zone separating the continental regions of Southeast Asia or Sunda and Australia New Guinea or Sahul. And on the edge of the Sunda continental shelf, that would be present-day Borneo. In Sulawesi, the dating of rock art motifs, including hand stencils and figurative paintings of animals and even anthropomorphic figures, has yielded minimum ages ranging from 51.2 thousand to 17,000 years. All of the dated rock art sites are located in the karst region of Maros Pangkep in southwestern Sulawesi. On the opposing southern peninsula, southeast Sulawesi, the presence of rock art inside limestone karst caves was reported as early as 1977, but largely remained under-investigated until now. The newest research resulted in the documentation of 44 sites and the dating of 11 individual rock art motifs, meaning 7 hand stencils and 4 other paintings, 2 of human figures and 2 geometric motifs. And they did that by dating calcite. More specifically, they dated thin layers of calcium carbonate using a method called uranium series dating. The method measures how radioactive uranium naturally turns into thorium over time, which allows you to estimate when the calcite formed. To do this, they used a very fine laser connected to a high-precision mass spectrometer. The laser was moved slowly across the surface of each sample, either across the whole surface to create a detailed chemical map, or along straight lines to measure changes through the growth layers of the calcite. This way, they could see how uranium and thorium were distributed and choose the cleanest areas for dating. Very small areas were measured, roughly the width of a human hair, to ensure very high accuracy. The oldest minimum age constraint obtained is for a hand stencil from Liang Metanduno in Muna Island, partially covered by mineral formations and sadly in a poor state of preservation. It's just a patch of faded pigment bearing a portion of the fingers and the palm area. What is absolutely fascinating is that the tip of one finger appears to have been artificially narrowed, either through the additional application of pigment or by moving the hand during pigment application. So it was essentially modified to look like a claw. And that is something we do, we humans do. It's very us, and you can relate to that so much. It also shows that our ancestors might have had complex ideas about the world and our relationship to animals and nature in general. We've only recently become separate from our environment in the sense of perceiving nature as something to be dominated. But in many ancient societies, and maybe even tens of thousands of years before that, we were perceiving the environment in a very different way. It was much more integrated within us, and we were integrated within it. So maybe in this context too, it wasn't just an artistic play with your hand, but also something quite symbolic, trying to look more like an animal and to be like it. And now the dating. Dating results show that the stencil was produced at least a staggering 67.8 thousand years ago. Another sample was taken from a hand stencil on the same panel. This one is partly covered by ancient mineral growth, leaving only a small section visible, and the pigment is also darker than that of the other hand stencils on the panel. It contains 2 separate pigment layers within the calcium carbonate. The older one has a minimum age of about 61,000 years, while the younger layer dates to between about 33,000 and 22,000. A close examination shows that the darker pigment lies on top of the lighter one, which might be from an earlier hand stencil, leftover spray, or part of a different image that is no longer visible. Regardless, the sample shows that the panel was painted at least twice during the Pleistocene, with the 2 paintings separated by at least 35,000 years. Because the oldest previously dated narrow fingered stencil was only 17,000 years old, the results show that the distinctive style of stencil art is much older than previously believed. Liang Metanduno also contains paintings that appear to be much younger, fresher looking artworks, such as a figurative representation of a bird. This looks quite a lot like a chicken. It is located between the two dated hand stencils. It might be linked to an Austronesian speaking Neolithic community in the region, and that is based on a find in a nearby cave, an image showing a human figure possibly holding material culture objects in both hands. And the minimum date for that is 4,000 years. Dating of several other hand stencils from southeastern Sulawesi produced minimum dates falling within the late Pleistocene. For example, in a limestone cave in the Menue Kepualan district, two samples provided minimum dates of 44.7 and 25.9 thousand. So, this extraordinary, extremely old rock art is concentrated in many parts of the large Wallacean island, which seems to have hosted a vibrant culture during the late Pleistocene. The current dating of 67.8 and 60.9 thousand years means that the hand stencils have the oldest minimum age constraints reported worldwide for parietal art that can be attributed to our species. When we think of very early rock art in Europe, a region first inhabited by sapiens around 54,000 years ago, Spain is the highlight. We have here a sprayed disc with a published minimum date of 40.8 thousand years from the cave El Castillo in Cantabria. And we also have a hand stencil from, again, Spain, in Maltravieso, with a published minimum date of 66.7 thousand years, a motif that has actually been attributed to our cousins, the Neanderthals, but the dating has also been quite controversial. At any rate, such new findings in other regions of the world do tend to dispel the Eurocentric view quite a lot. Now, we cannot know for sure what human lineage produced the stencil, and to further complicate the matter, Sulawesi was host to archaic hominins before colonization by modern humans as well, although it remains unclear whether there was a chronological overlap with our own species on the island. So we say we sapiens made it given the technical and stylistic complexity of these intentionally modified fingers on the hand stencil, and because we do know that our species arrived here at about the same time. It was actually the first planned long distance sea crossing we've undertaken. So, the first deliberate sea crossing by modern humans happened when sapiens moved beyond the eastern edge of mainland Southeast Asia, the Sunda, and crossed the Wallace Line. That was a major natural boundary separating Asian plants and animals from those farther east. And computer models suggest there were two main sea routes from Sunda to the ancient continent of Sahul, which essentially is Australia and New Guinea. The northern route began in what is now Borneo, passed through Sulawesi, and then reached Sahul via islands such as Misol or Western Papua. The southern route ran from Java through the Lesser Sunda Islands to northwestern Australia, likely via Timor. Archaeological evidence shows early human presence at the start and end of these routes, with modern humans in mainland Southeast Asia by about 86 to 68,000 years ago, and in Australia by about 69 to 59,000 years ago. However, there has been a long standing lack of archaeological sites in the region between Sumatra and Australia, making it difficult to confirm which route was actually used. So, the newly discovered hand stencils at Liang Metanduno are currently the oldest known evidence of modern humans in Wallacea. Importantly, this rock art lies along the northern route to Sahul and is the easternmost dated Pleistocene rock art found in the region. All other dated Ice Age cave art in island Southeast Asia is also located along the northern pathway. So there are two major implications. These findings strongly suggest that the first people to reach Sahul traveled by sea through northern Wallacea. They also show that modern humans arrived in the region around 65,000 years ago with a well-developed artistic tradition, likely part of the population that would eventually give rise to the ancestors of indigenous Australians and Papuans. These findings also add to the growing body of evidence suggesting that early human creativity was not confined to Ice Age Europe, but rather developed in multiple regions. So, I really hope you enjoyed this update. It was so enlightening to read about these findings that also show how much still remains hidden and awaiting to be discovered. One of my favorite things when reading and talking about prehistory, I think, is the use of we and us to describe the entirety of the human experience and not just communities separated by all kinds of criteria of identification and self identification from religion to ethnicity and so on. It's just us humans and our outstanding journey into the unknown. Speaking of which, you should really watch the video where I discuss the newest research about the Neanderthals and why they went extinct. It's also quite fascinating. If you enjoyed the channel, which by the way remains a Viking channel, but sometimes I like to spice it up a bit with the other history topics as well, do consider supporting it with a membership or a small donation so that I can go on and enchant you with even more similar videos. Thank you so much for watching. This was Irina. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.